Hey Southwest kids, it is so great to be with you. I hope you have had a great weekend and plan on having a great start to a new week. We are talking about Moses, and last week we went over how when that the king at that time, Pharaoh, wanted all the baby boys to be killed, and so Moses's mother, instead of killing him, put him in a basket and floated him down a river. And then the king's daughter was out at the river at that time and found baby Moses in the basket and took her in. And then she needed somebody to take care of that baby because she wanted that baby taken care of. And so she went and she got Moses's mother to take care of him. And so Moses grew up in the palace and was raised with his mother. And he was an adopted son to the king of Egypt, which made him what? A prince. Yes, Moses was the prince of Egypt. And so in Acts 7:22, it says, Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was powerful in speech and in actions. Okay, so we talked about this last week, how he got to go to the best schools and was educated and was just trained by the best and got all the best stuff because he lived in the palace. And so, but then it said the nation of Israel began with Jacob, or Israel, his family of about 70 people. And all of that went good for as long as Joseph and the friends of Pharaoh were alive, because remember, Pharaoh loved Joseph and let him be in charge of everything because he was a godly man and he did what God wanted. And so he was put in charge of lots of things. And but then we read, I'll read it again though, Exodus 1:6-14, and it says, now Joseph and all his brothers and all the generation died, but the Israelites were fruitful and multiplied greatly and became exceedingly numerous, so that the land was filled with them. Then a new king who did not know about Joseph came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to the people, the Israelites have become much too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they'll become even more numerous, and they'll break out war, and they will join our enemies, and they will fight against us and leave the country. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramesses as a store for Pharaoh. Okay, so it says right there in scriptures that the king that was there now did not remember Joseph and everything he had done for that country. And so the king was worried about how many Hebrews there were. And so slavery was Pharaoh's attempt to gain control over that nation. He wanted to make them slaves so he could have control, and they couldn't overthrow his kingdom. And also he thought, this is a good way that I can get a whole bunch of stuff done for free. And so he would make them work and work and work and just be miserable for free. So although the Egyptians raised Moses, his mother had taught him compassion for his people, which were the Hebrews. And one day when Moses was about 40 years old, this is the second part of Moses' life when he was 40, he saw an Egyptian beating. He was beating up a Hebrew slave. And he got so mad that he struck and killed the Egyptian. And that was in, if you want to read in Exodus 2:11 through 12, that says, one day after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Glancing this way and that and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. But can we hide things from God or from anybody, really? No, we can't. And so he escaped, and he had to try to run for his life because people found out. And so he had escaped to Midian, where he met and he married Zipporah. And she was the daughter of Jethro, a Midianite priest. And this begins then the second period of Moses' 40 years of his life. Okay? All right. And then if you want to keep reading in Exodus 2, and you can start in verse 11, and you can go all the way to chapter 4 of Exodus, okay? And it talks about how Moses was one of the greatest leaders who ever lived. But God asked Moses to lead his people out of Egypt, and Moses exclaimed, "Why me? Or send somebody else." He gave God all kinds of excuses as to why he was not the person for the job. I mean, he had excuses like, if you look at Exodus 3:10 through 11, it says, "So now go. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" He was kind of questioning God there, wasn't he? And then you can read Exodus 3, verse 13. Moses said to God, "Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your father has sent me to you.' And they ask me, 'What is his name?' Then what should I tell them?" He was worried, wasn't he, about what he was supposed to say. Then you look at Exodus 4:1. It says, "What if they did not believe me or listen to me and say, 'The Lord did not appear to you'?" Oh, goodness. And then in Exodus 4:10 through 13, Moses said to the Lord, "Oh, Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past, nor since you've spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and in tongue." And then even one more time in Exodus 4:13, it says, "But Moses said, 'Oh Lord, please send someone else to do it.'" I mean, can you even believe that Moses argued with God? I mean, God had answered and he had a solution for all his arguments. And God was very patient with Moses, wasn't he? I mean, would you do that? Would you have an argument with God? If God told you to do something, would you argue with him? Oh, goodness, I don't know. Sometimes, though, we sometimes probably do argue with God, don't we? Maybe sometimes we think, well, I'm not going to invite them to church because they might say no. Okay, and that's kind of arguing with God. Or if God says, "Why don't you go and help somebody today?" And, you know, you might see somebody as you're driving home from church, say, and they have a flat tire, and you think, "Oh, we should stop and help them." But you think, "Well, God, you know, I need to take a nap so I can get back and come to church Sunday night. I mean, I'm going to come to church and I don't want to miss my nap. And so I better not stop and help." Is that kind of arguing with God? Yeah, or your mom or dad says maybe you should pick up your toys, and it says in the Bible to obey your parents, and you say, well, I'll do it later. I'll do that later. Is that kind of still arguing? Even though we're arguing with our parents, we're told to obey our parents. That's still kind of arguing with God. Okay, so what's, though, some ways that you can be a great leader for God? Okay, we can use good language. Okay, we can say good, positive things. We can be nice to people that aren't even nice to us. Even if they're mean to us or say mean things, we can still be nice to them. We can invite friends to church. We can be a good sport if you're playing a sport and you don't win or you don't get a call. You think you were, gypped out of a good call or something like that. You still can have a good attitude and be a good sport about it. You can let your friends see how obedient you are to your parents. And if you have a friend over and your mom and dad says, well, go time to clean up your stuff, and you jump right up and go do it, your friend would be like, oh, wow, she really obeys her parents. That's a good example. You can be good students. You can always try your best, whether you're cleaning your room, whether you're working out in the yard, whether you're doing homework, whatever you do, you can do your very best. You can be careful of what maybe you listen to on the radio or what you watch on TV or what you look at on the computer. You want to keep it positive and healthy. You can be very generous with what you've been given, okay? If you've got lots of toys, maybe give some away to somebody that doesn't have any. Or if you have clothes that somebody needs, maybe you should give your clothes to them, okay? You can study your Bible so you'll be ready when it's time to share the Bible with somebody else. And but there's just so many ways that we can be leaders for God without having to stand up in the pulpit or having to lead singing. I mean, we can do all of those different things and be great leaders for God, okay? So we're going to do our memory verse, Numbers 12:3. Now Moses was an humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. Then we got Philippians 2:3-4. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourself. Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also the interest of others. Okay? And the last one, this isn't a memory verse, but the last thing I want you to remember out of this lesson, when God calls you to be a leader, what is your answer going to be? Are you going to argue with God? Are you going to say, yes, send me, God, I'm ready. I'm going to be a great leader for you, and I know exactly how to do it. I'm going to be a good student. I am going to do my best. I'm going to be great on this sports field. I'm just going to do everything I can, Lord, to be a good leader for you. Okay? So you guys have a great week. Go be great leaders for God, and we'll see you next week.